wasn't it? Thank you to those of you who are here in person and for those who are Zooming in tonight. We have a variety of things that we want to discuss with you, and just to kind of give you an idea of the upcoming events here. We want to talk a little bit about upcoming meetings. We have a couple of volunteer opportunities that we want to speak with you about. We're going to give a brief report, Steve Sinclair and I, on the planning and zoning public hearing that was held 1 week ago. In fact, let's see, it's 7 o'clock now. 1 week ago, we had 2 more hours to go, 2.5 hours more to go, before we all emptied out into a rather impressive thunderstorm. So this is a much more pleasant experience than it was a week ago. And then we want to talk a little bit about the corridor planning area, which is a new initiative that we've described a little bit, and we'll give you the timeline for that. And then finally, we have tonight's speakers, the Secretary of Agriculture and the Deputy Secretary of Agriculture, who are here. And we'll be speaking about a variety of topics, all dealing with responsibilities within their domain, within the jurisdiction of their department. So first, we'd like you to make note of a couple of things that are coming up. Our next meeting is May 20th here in this room. We are going to try to do something a little different. We've mentioned this before, that WRDE, Coast TV, completed a documentary about development issues along the coast. It's called The Price of Paradise. And that was put together by Madeline Overturf, who is the anchor person there. What the documentary did was to lay out kind of a diagnosis of many of the problems facing the coastal area in terms of development pressures. And among those, of course, are things that our speakers tonight can also speak to, which is the loss of farmland to development. But we don't know precisely how the night will proceed and exactly how we will do it, but we're going to have a discussion about what's of concern to you, what bothers you, what annoys you, what do you think the county should be working on, what should they be focusing on as they move into a number of initiatives that they're about to launch. And if possible, suggestions that you feel should be pursued, ideas for change. And Madeline will be here to facilitate that discussion, and hopefully that will become part of the WRDE coverage moving forward. The logical successor to their first documentary will be another one, or perhaps more than one piece of coverage on solutions and possible ideas for moving forward. So in preparation for that, I'm giving a homework assignment, something that I'm very accustomed to doing to people. And so what I would suggest you do is take a look at The Price of Paradise. This is one of the places you can find it. That's the address. You can also find it on the WRDE website, although it was a little more difficult for me to locate when I did it that way, which is why this one is a little more direct. I also would like you to come prepared with some examples. share your story. Give us some ideas about how your life has been affected by what has unfolded here over the last 20 years, right? Um, Tell us the difficulties you may have had, if you've encountered them, getting medical care, making an appointment, um, getting into the dentist's rotation. I know my initial wait was a long one. The problems of commuting. So share some examples and just reflect about it. We will be sending out an email, as we always do, before the meetings, and I will refresh your memory about this homework assignment and encourage you to come prepared for that meeting. We will also be having meetings on June the 9th and July the 21st. We're not quite set up yet with who our speakers might be or what kind of a meeting it will be, but we will be alerting you to those coming up. We're always looking for volunteers. And I'm sure you have no shortage of people asking you to volunteer for various things. Two opportunities that we want to discuss briefly. The first is an action and advocacy fair that's going to be held here at the Lewis Library on May the 16th. We will be represented there. It's an opportunity to kind of become familiar with other organizations in the area that are obviously advocacy groups of various sorts, network a bit, learn what their interests are, their activities are, to make some connections that may be helpful, as well as to represent obviously what SPC does. You don't have to be a member of the board to be able to talk about what SPC does. If you've been coming to our meetings, you've got an idea, and you know the kinds of things that we are concerned with because they're the kinds of things that concern you already. So Allison White will be taking the lead, the member of our board, and here is her email address. If you have some interest in doing this, it's for 2 hours on May the 16th here at the library. The large project that SPC is preparing for is the comprehensive plan, which will launch in July. The comprehensive plan will unfold over a year and a half, as Rich Barrasso described it at our last meeting. It will involve lots of meetings, lots of opportunities for public engagement. We don't know what that schedule is yet, nor do we know who the consultants will be who will be engaged in doing that. But we will want to monitor especially closely these three buckets of issues: land use, housing, and community design, as one combination of issues that are related and that we think are of great significance moving forward and to the issues that concern us. Conservation, recreation, forest preservation, and open space is another bucket of issues. And third and finally, utilities, transportation, and education, which I'm going to talk about in just a minute. We are in the process of identifying supporters of SPC who can first bring some technical knowledge with them to look at these issues. And secondly, if you, even though you may not have technical training, if you have an interest in these areas, people who will be able to help attend meetings, monitor what's going on, help all of the rest of us remain up to speed, up to date with what's unfolding over this long period of time. And the difficulty is going to be sustaining our effort over a long period. We need more than 2 people per bucket working on this, right? We're going to have kind of committees of people who are working on these things. It may puzzle you, utilities, transportation, and education. The utilities piece of it are questions about sewers, water, increasingly about electric, Wi-Fi, right? So what we need in this county is a sense of the adequacy of these services. Are these services meeting the demands that are being placed upon them by the rapid growth in the county? So if the county has grown by 65,000 people in the last 10 years, which is something I read today, which means 6,500 to 7,000 additional people per year, have we been able to keep up with that? And if it has become difficult, if there are pinch points, how do we factor in that question of adequacy and the capacity to serve that level of growth? And so we are going to be talking a lot over the next year and a half or longer about this question of adequate public services, adequate infrastructure. And I had a letter in the Cape Gazette recently that tried to address that. It was kind of the first salvo in what I think SPC is going to be doing moving forward. We also, in our testimony recently at this planning and zoning hearing, raised several issues about this. So that's why the utilities is in there, right? It's a question about the pace of growth and whether we are able to keep up with all of the essential services that the community needs in the face of that. So those are the 3 buckets. And if you have an interest in one of those, please speak with me at some point, or with Steve Sinclair, who is here tonight. He's going to be chairing another of those buckets, and Rich Barrasso is going to be chairing a 3rd one. So any of the board members would be able to help you kind of get connected with us on any of these things. Any questions about that I might be able to answer at this early point? I mean, we're early in the process, but we have to get organized because it's a big job. And we understand that we have a big job in front of us with what we aspire to do. Yeah, so I mean, it's that kind of an issue that we want to be able to get on top of so that when the time comes, when these are being discussed, we have something to say that will make a difference, that will be meaningful. So anyone who has an interest in one of these, please let us know. Okay, so I do want to take a little bit of time 5 or 10 minutes to kind of talk about these hearings that were held last Wednesday. The Planning and Zoning Commission started its meeting at 3. It had a lot of preliminary work. So after 3 hours and 15 minutes approximately, they took a recess. And then when they came back, we started working on the 4 ordinances on that part of the hearing. By that time, it was 6 p.m., right? And we'd been sitting there already for 3 hours. And you have to go at the beginning because they say they reserve the right to change the agenda. So the sequencing of the items can change. So you have to go through the whole thing. I will say that 50% of the people who attended that hearing are here in this room tonight, right? Which means that Steve and I and David Hutt were 3 of the 6 people who spoke during that. And I forgot that we also have Kevin Conlon, who was there throughout the entire thing and has written about it, but he did not speak, even though they urged you to a couple of times. So it was a long process. If you remember from the last meeting there were 4 ordinances coming forward. Jane Grunebaum talked about those at our last meeting. They took them one at a time. The next public hearing on those 4 ordinances will be on May the 12th with the county council. The 4 ordinances dealt with the Sussex County Rental Program, SCRP for short, which is the program that's focused on affordable rental housing. It has not been a roaring success. It's been in place for about 5 years, and there are only 2 projects that have availed themselves of the opportunities to do that. So consequently, it hasn't had much of an impact on the affordable housing needs of the county. There was also an ordinance that dealt with what's called 999C. It is a checklist of requirements that a developer must satisfy in order for the proposal to be approved. And there's discussion about, I think it's 17 items on the list. And what should those items be, and how clear are the standards that are articulated in this list. Both SPC and the business community agree that there's a lack of clarity about what's expected. So this is a case, Kevin, where we actually agreed with the business community, though our view about what should be expected is likely to differ from theirs on a couple of points. There's also one on open space, and it's an important one. It deals with the way in which open space is calculated, particularly in areas that we would like to discourage development. And the 4th one, Steve, remind me? Open space and cluster development and open space are related, but yeah, okay. So there's a major one on cluster development in areas that are primarily open space and agricultural farmland areas. And the intent of that is to find disincentives to discourage developers from buying up farmlands and then turning them into subdivisions, into suburban sprawl. There is on for the county council. There are two ways. You can submit written comments on the ordinances, and so you can read them and then submit anything you'd like on those individual ones. You can also phone in comments during the public hearing. The Planning and Zoning Commission does not allow phone-in comments. And so there are a couple of different ways you can do it. So you don't have to sit through the entire 6 hours, right? So we had a glorious time. Let me just say a couple of things. From the perspective of SPC, we went through line by line on these 4 ordinances, identified language that we thought needed to be clarified, identified gaps that we thought might exist, and we're not going to review all that testimony that we gave. I will say that on the question of the SCRP, we believe that affordable housing needs to have a clear target. We need to know as a county, how many units are we aiming to try to build? What's the time frame for that construction, that need? Of which type, rental or purchase? What's our definition of affordable, and how do we operationalize that so that you know for this level of income, we need this many units, and the cost of the rental cannot be higher than X, and the X is 30% of their income, of a household income. We're kind of going in the blind, and in our view, there needs to be much greater clarity about what the goal is, what the milestones will be. How do we know when we're making a dent? How will we know when we're getting closer? Better than where we now stand, which is that there's only 1 or 2 that are there, and so we know that's not enough. So what is enough, right? What is it that we're trying to get to? So we've been disappointed throughout the discussion about this lack of clarity. We did introduce the argument that we needed to have clear guidelines for adequate infrastructure. And we focused on 3 different essential services in our view: schools, fire and ambulance, and transportation, i.e. roads. And we need to be able to link decisions about development proposals to the capacity of those services, either in place or planned. So if we don't currently have enough classroom space to accommodate all of the students who will be living in Cold Spring, what is the plan to build that space so that it will be there when you need it? In part, County Council is addressing some of this capacity in question this year. One is the proposal to provide ambulance, that the county will provide funding for volunteer fire departments to increase the number of ambulances that they have and to regularly replace old ones. That just came up at the last County Council meeting. That's part of the answer. The same thing is true about having a school impact fee, which has been discussed. I think there are 3 votes on County Council at least to get that passed. It's been in the works. It's supposed to be phased in July. We haven't seen the details yet. Will the impact fee be high enough that it actually makes a difference for the schools? We don't know. The schools, as it now stands, are informed about a development. They get a letter. There's going to be a development. It's going to be this location. Here's the name of the development. There you go. They don't say, do you have enough room? They don't say, does this raise problems for you? They don't say, we'd like to hear back from you about the impact this will have on your schools. We believe that that's an important question that should be answered. And then roads, which of course we know already have been solved, all the problems of our roads. There's a lot of action coming down the pike about roads, but in fact, there's a lot more that's going to be needed. And that is one of the most complex pieces of this puzzle. And we are working hard on accumulating information, accumulating experience from other counties, both in Delaware and out of Delaware, about how they've dealt with this situation. So we will be coming forward with even more suggestions. But the one suggestion that we highlighted that was a departure at our testimony was that there should be phasing of construction of developments with improvements to the roads. If you're going to build a development and there needs to be greater capacity, then you shouldn't build the houses before you build the road capacity. At a minimum, it should be done concurrently, and there should be a plan in place for that concurrency. Now, this is a revolutionary idea in Sussex. Other people, as Walt just said, it's not a revolutionary idea in the rest of the world. Other places have solved this problem, right? Newcastle County has a rather elaborate system of evaluating capacity, concurrency, and adequacy. Kent County tried it for 10 years until the developers managed to change the composition of the levy court, and then they retracted those adequate public facilities ordinances. Maryland does it in many counties in Maryland. It is not rocket science. It takes determination and some will and some courage. And we plan to be talking about this, right? So the reason I'm getting a little wound up about it is that it's going to be a priority of ours moving forward. I've asked Steve to say a few words about these last two as well.
Thank you, Joe. As Joe mentioned, SPC really looks at 99.9C as one of the most important components of Chapter 99. As he mentioned, it's a checklist that the developers have to go through, and there's 18 criteria that they have to address in that initial submission of their plot plan. And the more specificity we can give to those criteria and objectives, the better that planning and zoning and the county council is going to be able to evaluate these proposals and make sure that they meet the criteria. I think the Cape Gazette did an excellent job in their article identifying that of those 4 ordinances that were put forward, definitely 99.9 was the one that was most contentious and saw a division between the developers and what we were told to anti-growth groups, which I took offense of because I don't think we are at all anti-growth. This isn't the first time that SPC has testified on 99.9C. Rich Barassi and I both testified, as well as Jill, back 2 years ago when this was brought up before. We made some minor successes in that last iteration, and we hope to do a little bit more this time around. I must admit, though, I really think that planning and zoning and the county council, if it wasn't shown up in the last iteration, it is shown up in this new one. And I think we've made some really positive steps in moving the county a little bit forward. And one of the two that I want to identify right now is, it seemed in the past that a developer would go onto a site and lay out the roads, lay out the stormwater ponds, put the lots in, and then what got left over became open space. It was they couldn't build on it or didn't want to build on it. This new ordinance is talking about the fact that the first thing that should take place is that property should be mapped. Those resources, whether it's forest, open land, wildlife habitat, wetland features, significant natural resources are mapped first. After that is mapped, then they go and start designing that gray infrastructure, all the built environment. So what we're hoping to see is, we'll start to see more forest land preserved. We'll start to see open space be more naturalized and not just bulldozed and seeded over. So this is really a step in the right direction. There's still a couple tweaks that we'd like to make to it, but overall, I think it's going forward in the right way. We were made aware, because some of our testimony that we made last week, Vince Robertson, who's the assistant attorney for planning and zoning in the council, mentioned that Kyle Hoyt, the state forester from Delaware, has been working with the county council and coming up with a forest preservation ordinance. And that, I believe, has been submitted to the county council. And one of the elements of that is the forest stand delineation, which is, as the former state forester in Vermont, is something that I've been promoting all along down here in Delaware, and SPC has been in conversation with Kyle on this. So we're waiting patiently to see what is being proposed. But I think the final say is that we're really starting to move the ball in the right direction.
That's a very upbeat interpretation. Yes. Yeah, so the question is whether the testimony that we gave is posted on the website. We have not done that yet. I'm not sure that posting our submission, we have a submission that we gave in that we could do, and then there will be minutes, I think, from the meeting. Right, so there's a way to hear it, to listen to it. You're welcome to do that. Good for you. Very quickly, one of the initiatives on transportation, on traffic, is the Route 9 corridor master plan process, which is already supposedly kicked off. At this point, there's a planning team that's been created between the county, the Office of State Planning Coordination, and DelDOT. We would argue that it would be important if agriculture had a seat at that table, and I'm not sure what role that you might play in that process, since there are some ag lands along that Route 9 corridor that deserve protection. That team has already started exchanging data. There will be some public workshops in May and June to kind of discuss, I think, some of the preliminary ideas. Then in the June-August period of time, There will be some scenarios presented. The fact that they know already that there'll be 4 scenarios suggests that they've been working on this, which they have in the last several years. And then there will be a presentation to the public and public hearings on a master plan for the Route 9 corridor. SPC has argued this is something that's needed. Instead of making piecemeal decisions, one after another, along an entire highway, with no one kind of looking at the big picture and assessing the big picture, you can end up with something that no one ever intended and a real mess, right? And from my perspective, having lived in Delaware for more than 40 years now, I know of a lot of real messes upstate that we would not like to see replicated here in Sussex. Route 1 is enough. And so this is an opportunity, I think, for us to do a better job at coordinating the provision of traffic improvements, the necessary traffic accommodation, and land use decisions. And that's the goal of it. It's very ambitious. They hope to be finished by September. Whatever they come up with will then be folded into the comprehensive plan, and there will also be adjustments made at the state level in the state strategies and policies document, if those are required. That brings us to our speakers for this evening, and these are photographs of the Secretary of Agriculture, Don Clifton, and Deputy Secretary Jimmy Croon. Don Clifton became Delaware Secretary of Agriculture in January of 2005 when he joined Governor Meyer's cabinet. Before that, didn't I say that? Oh my, had you known you'd been there that long, huh? Time really flies when you're having fun. 2025, thank you. Before then, he served as executive director of the Delaware Farm Bureau, held positions in the U.S. Department of Agriculture during the Clinton and Obama administrations, and he served on several statewide committees under Governors Minner and Carney. And his family has farmed in Sussex for 4 generations. And I learned today that you're a graduate of Cape Henlopen High School.
1976. Yeah, played football my junior and senior year. We went 3-7 both years, and started out 3-1 both years. We had injuries.
We're going to switch to your slides.
Okay. While that's happening, I'll give you a little bit of additional personal background.
Do this so that the Zoom people.
Oh, yeah. A little bit of personal back. You need to be pretty close. Yeah. A little bit of personal background on myself. I did graduate from Cape Henlopen after attending elementary and middle school in Milton. I'm a Milton boy. And when we came to Lewis to go to school in the old Lewis High School, everybody called us, the guys from Milton, they called us chicken farmers. And that's before chickens were as ubiquitous as they are now. We were the early chicken farmers, but my family didn't have chickens. Anyway, I was a chicken farmer, just like the rest of them. I met my wife, Ruth, at a dance after a football game at Cape Henlopen. And we'll soon be married 47 years. We have 7 children and 10 grandchildren. We live just on the Kent County side of Milford now. But I grew up on the farm that I own, right on Route 1, southbound lane. And that location you might be familiar with it. There's a lot of farm equipment out near the highway there. And until last summer, there was a barn there that had the name of a friend of mine on it in 8-foot high letters, a gentleman by the name of Joseph R. Biden. So that's where I grew up, that house on the corner. My son Lucas and his family are now in that house, and we're very proud of our heritage, and Ruth and I are very proud of the family. And a bunch of them were over on Easter Sunday, so that's an instant party when our family gets together. Anyway. I'll talk really fast. So when Joe and I talked about this possibility of doing this presentation, I of course said yes right away. Now, let's see. Do the down one. Okay. He asked that I give you a little bit of situational report on agriculture in general, both at the national level and the state level. Well, you know, agriculture's been in the news recently for the reasons that we farmers would prefer not to be. We have diesel prices through the roof. We have fertilizer prices through the roof. The cost price squeeze for our commodities, whether it be corn, soybeans, wheat, most of the things that we grow, the margins are slim to none. And earlier this year, the USDA and the president announced $12 billion as bridge payments, they called it, that to go out to farmers. Most of that goes to commodity farmers, but some of it has been reserved for specialty crops like we grow. My family tends to grow peas, lima beans, sweet corn for processing. We used to own a vegetable processing facility for a long time. That money has mostly been distributed at this point, but now they're realizing what all the farm advocacy groups were telling them is that 12 billion was not enough. It was going to take something like 35 billion. And in my experience, having worked for USDA, this kind of assistance always comes way late, and it's always too little. And the farmers have either had to move on to another livelihood, or they've refinanced at usurious interest or something. But it never works to the farmer's advantage. And we're now 3 years into not having a farm bill at all. There's been extensions, and so things are pretty critical at the national level. At the state level, because we have a strong poultry industry, our commodity prices are a little bit better than they are in the West. And so where farm bankruptcies nationwide have increased, or they increased 46% in 2025. In Delaware, we haven't seen that type of increase in bankruptcies. So locally, not so bad. Nationally, we're in a tenuous situation. Expectations, who knows? You know, I'll leave it at that because we got too much else to talk about. All right, so DDA, this is a little bit about us. It was established in 1970 when the cabinet form of government was coming about. It used to be the Commission of Agriculture, and all those things there at the bottom, the Bureau of Markets, state chemists, state apiarists, weights and measures, forestry, farmland evaluation advisory committee, all those things were wrapped into the Delaware Department of Agriculture. And so now we have 11 sections plus 2 other sections, which are the thoroughbred racing and harness racing commissions. So we have a broad responsibility, and we touch the lives of everybody every day. Most people don't realize it. The weights and measures. When you pump gas, those gas pumps have been inspected by our people to make sure you're getting what the machine says you're getting. And here's another thing. This is very new to us. Weights and Measures also performs tasks regarding marijuana. Think how important it is to make sure an ounce is an ounce. I understood that differently 50 years ago than I do today. But I can appreciate it. So agriculture is still the #1 industry. We've got our nose out in front of tourism, but they're biting on us all the time. On 520,000 acres of farmland, there's about 2,150 family farms, and we produce a lot of stuff. The corn and soybeans primarily go to the poultry industry. Wheat is pastry-style wheat, goes to the mills in Pennsylvania. Some of it can go to animal feed. Of course, poultry represents about 70 to 75% of gross ag receipts. And it is a remarkably inexpensive form of protein for the masses. Fruits and vegetables now, May 2nd, I think, is the first day for Lewis Farmers Market, historic Lewis Farmers Market. Is that correct? Some of you know that? All right, I intend to be there. It's a remarkable place, and I'm always, when I go there, and most of the farmers markets, I'll say, but Lewis especially provides you, when you go there, there's a huge sense of community. It permeates the whole area, and the vendors and the visitors and the folks that are shelling out their cashola to assist these farmers and buy their excellent produce. It's just a remarkable setting. 275 million broiler chickens. Sussex County is the #1 broiler producing county in the country. That aggravates some people. No one here, I'm sure. We need to balance some things, and we realize that. I found this to be remarkable too. Food and agriculture industries provide 76,000 and change direct jobs, 1 in 8. And I did the math. That means we have about 610,000 jobs in total. And to think that agriculture provides 1 in 8 is remarkable, I think. Those farmers markets that I just mentioned topped $5 million in sales last year for the first time, a new record. And 40 to 50% of the population is within a day's drive of Delaware. That's always been a key selling point for trying to get ag companies to locate here on this corridor, because we have so much of the population. All right, I wanted to touch on some Sussex County comparison data. And so I dug around a little bit, and I found these from the Economic Research Service of USDA. Those are 2023 county population figures. Kent County, 189,000 plus, 578,000 in Newcastle, and 263,000 plus in Sussex County. Now that's a density of 237 per square mile in Kent, 1,171 per square mile in Newcastle, and 220 per square mile in Sussex. And that makes Sussex the least densely populated county in Delaware. And our population in Sussex County, age 62 and over, is 35%. That includes a few of us in this room. Newcastle and Kent, much lower. The median age in Sussex County is 50.4 years. Newcastle, 39.2. Kent, 38.5. So now, here's where we start looking at how ag land, farmland fits in with a population that we have in Sussex County. As I said, Sussex County is the least densely populated at 220 per square mile. The least populated counties in some other states are incredibly fewer. In Florida, Liberty County has 10 per square mile. Georgia, Clinch County, 8.5. Illinois, Pope County, 12.1. Indiana, Benton County, 21.8. A lot of folks in that county compared to those other states. Iowa in Adams County, 9.5. So we have, and when we're talking about, they don't have challenges in those counties preserving farmland, where we have such a mixed economy, and the value of our land, the market for land of even marginal value will exceed what the values are out in some of those states. The economic drivers in Sussex County include agriculture, of course, housing, construction, tourism, retail, and services, which include healthcare. And if you look, I don't know if this thing has a pointer, does it? It does. If you look at this right here, this is a map of the percent change in GDP for counties between the year 23 and 24. And Delaware is doing quite well when it comes to GDP growth. But look at what Sussex County has done compared to the other two counties in those 2 years. Sussex County is over 6% growth in both of those years. Sussex County is a powerhouse. Per capita personal income. This surprised me a little bit. I expected Newcastle to be top. Kent County, 55,000. Newcastle, 69. Sussex County, 73,000. Per capita personal income. So we have a lot of challenges in the marketplace when it comes to how are we going to preserve our land and how are we going to properly regulate the land that maybe should be developed. And I applaud you for your activity, this group. It's essential. I'm going to let Jimmy have the microphone now to go through some slides on the farmland preservation program itself. Will that work too? And I'll chime in. I'll hang on to this. But Jimmy, I put Jimmy in the deputy secretary position effective January 12th, and he's. I just think he's got the most institutional knowledge of anybody at the department. He's been with the department 22 years and served in a number of roles, but most recently as the chief of planning in the ag land preservation, chief of planning, and which includes ag land preservation. So Jimmy, move us through these.
So yeah, last year we announced our 29th round of ag land preservation easements. The way that our farmland preservation works is, first of all, it's an entirely voluntary program. And we work with, oh, I guess time.
The library is now closed. Please proceed to your respects.
Thank you. So we work with farmers who are interested in preserving their land, and they can sign up first as an agricultural district, which allows them to participate in an annual process where we select easements for permanent preservation, where we're actually buying the development rights from those farmers. And I'm going to gloss over. It's not on. It's on. Say it. Yeah, we have another mic. That doesn't work. Okay. My turn. Is that better? Okay. So we work with interested farmers. Every year we get money from the states. It's actually money that's transferred out of the real estate transfer tax revenue fund. Every time land or real estate exchanges hands, you may know there is a real estate transfer tax. It's 4% of the purchase price split between the seller and the buyer. We get in state code, we get $10 million a year out of the revenue from that tax. And that is transferred to the Delaware Ag Lands Preservation Foundation, which is a corporate entity within the Department of Agriculture. We have our own board made up of farmers as well as a few representatives from state government. And the way that we select farms is everybody has a chance to be appraised each year. They get a copy of their appraisal, and we run essentially a reverse auction where those farms, where those landowners get to go in and make an offer to the foundation, which is a percentage discount off of the full fair market value of the development rights. Not the fair market value of the farm, but the development rights. And we simply take those offers and we put them in order in a spreadsheet with a few other rules. But for the most part, we are selecting farms starting at the highest percentage discount, moving down to the lowest percentage discount until we run out of money for the year. And then, we notify everybody who was selected and wasn't selected. And if you weren't selected, we say, you're welcome to try again next year. So, we found that we've gotten a lot of comments from people over the years that they feel like this is a very fair process. Of course, there are always critiques, but the one thing that it removes is any ability for people to kind of game the system or get paid because they know somebody. Because for the most part, it is them deciding what they're willing to offer the state, offer the foundation for their development rights in exchange for getting selected. So last year, just for example, and this is exciting too because this means this year is round 30. But so every year we have a round. Last year was round 29, and we spent about $14.9 million and selected 2,800 acres. That sounds great. I mean, I'm happy we got 2,800 acres, but that is much lower than it used to be, of course, because our appraisals are based on market value of land. Land values have been going up
I'm sorry, it's a keep the acres or what? Where do those acres go?
Yeah, so they remain privately owned and we place a preservation easement on the farm. So whoever owned it previously, they still own it, they can transfer it, they can sell it. It is order of deeds, there's an easement on the farm that says it has to be used for agriculture. There's a limited amount of residential use, so you can place a few houses on the farm for yourself or for family or whatever.
And those are perpetuity?
Yes, yeah. Once we've paid, it's in perpetuity.
Based on the 10 million a year, the 15 million that was used this year, how much of that meets actually the interest?
Yeah, what do you mean, the interest?
The applications.
Preserved based on the limited amount available.
Of course, that fluctuates, but the last 2 years, each year we've had about around 100 offers for preservation, and we've selected 35 or so of them. I don't remember exactly, but it's around 30. So there are a significant number that don't get selected every year.
$10 million, how long?
You trade mics with him, because yours is.
Appreciation of real estate, it seems like that number should be at least adjusted to inflation on an annual basis.
That's a wonderful idea. It has been $10 million since 2005.
Percentage of the overall state, I know that varies based on year, but is $10 million 0.5% of the fund? Is it 2%
Of-
the fund?
Of the, yeah. Yeah, yeah. Let's see. Yeah, so real quick, so I can get to your question. So, last year this year, we're going to be selecting around 30 through the same process. Last year, we also have a clause where we can offer counties match on preserving farms that they are interested in if they are willing to provide funding too. And so that's what's at the bottom in round 29. Sussex County provided $1.9 million, and that helped us preserve an extra 8 farms that would not have been selected if we only had the state funding. And so when we offer that match, we tell them you can select your farms based on whatever criteria you want to use. Many of them still go roughly by, like trying to select ones that are a higher discount just because it means that their dollars, which are also taxpayer dollars, go farther. And so, I believe that's, I don't think it is the highest, but it's pretty close to the highest amount of money we've ever received from a county. Let's see. So funding, yes. In 2005, there was a permanent funding source added to to state law. It's in, I think it's Title 29 under real estate transfer tax. There is a chapter in there that provides $10 million a year, says it shall be transferred from the real estate transfer tax revenue to the foundation's preservation fund. And in 2005, I will say the entire general fund's real estate transfer tax revenue was 113.6 million. So roughly, Aglands was getting about 9% of that revenue. In 2025, we are still getting $10 million. Real estate transfer tax revenue last year was about 235 million. And that's the state's portion, because revenue is split between state and county. Comparing costs per acre, in 2005, we were paying about $2,000 an acre for an easement. In 2025, we paid about $5,000 an acre for an easement, and that's after the discounts that are being offered by landowners. Also, I would say the overall value of farmland in Delaware in the mid 90s was around $2,000, and I say mid 90s because that's when the program was started. We bought our first easement in 1996. So yeah, the value of farmland then, the overall, fair market value if you wanted to buy a farm was about $2,000 an acre, and now it's well over $11,000 an acre. And in some parts like eastern Sussex County or near any municipality, it could be $30,000 or $40,000 an acre.
And some higher than that. And you may have heard figures of $125,000, $130,000 an acre. And some farmland, depending upon proximity to, suburban Lewis, for instance, it's very difficult to find properties on the eastern side of the county anymore that will allow a family would kill a patriarch if they discounted 90% of their development value. I say that in jest, but maybe they ought to. So some properties are just going to be out of our reach no matter what. But that doesn't mean we don't try to use the program to the best use.
Mm-hmm. Oh, wrong button. There we go. Yeah, so in the last 20 years, real estate transfer tax has more than doubled. And ag lands as a percentage share, we're getting a shrinking proportion of that. And at the same time, cost per acre is rising sharply. So I'd say round 23, which was, I think 2019, we spent roughly the same amount of money and purchased almost 10,000 acres of easements compared to round 29 last year, where we spent about $15 million again and only got 2,800 acres of easements. So, wrong button again. So a little bit just overview of what we spent total over the life of the program. We have our total easement payments have been $311 million, and that's bought over 1,200 easements across the state, covering 160,000 acres of Delaware farmland. It's roughly, I think it's 29%. Through some wonderfully convenient math, we will probably go over 30% for round 30. We should put that on a t-shirt. So 311 million that we spent total, that 223 million has been from the state, about 64 million was from the federal government, mostly through NRCS, but also through a few other programs, fish and wildlife programs, Department of Transportation. Newcastle County has contributed 9.6 million through that process I explained, where they can pick their own farms off of our list to preserve if they contribute funding. Kent County has contributed 3.6 million, Sussex County 8 million, and then we got $2 million from a few other sources as well. Don's really proud of this, so I want to let him make the last point.
This number at the bottom is astounding. This is the total, the aggregate of what the farmland owners have discounted in development rights over the life of the program. And you can see that it far exceeds the total expenditure to obtain the easements. And I scratch my head. my land is preserved. There's an easement on the land that I own, plus my brothers and my sister. My father did that in the third round. And what is there a team, a first team and a second team on this? First team and a second team on these mics? Okay. This is, microphones seem to be an issue in every venue we visit. But anyway, that's 57% of the aggregate easement value. And I scratched my head to try to figure out the incentive for doing this. And years ago, it was not as extraordinary, probably because, as we saw, the values were less. But nowadays, the values are creeping up, and some of them are exorbitant. One thing that you'll find is that farmers tend to be very passionate about their land, especially if they've been on the land for a number of generations. They have an attachment to the way of life. They're very proud of the way of life, and they want it to continue. And these easements are supposed to be in perpetuity. Now, in some cases, it was part of a strategy to retire debt. You know, a farmer accumulates debt his whole life, and then maybe he's got enough life insurance to pay it off at the end. That's the way it works sometimes. But this is a very, I sat with a senator recently, two senators, and was explaining this program to them, and this was something they didn't realize. And it's not very well communicated to the public. This land is not open space in the definition of preserved as open space, because it's tilled farmland. It's productive farmland. But if you view it in terms of open area that is undisturbed and provides a better quality of life to you all and to all of us who live in the community, it is the most inexpensive preservation program devised. It really is. So when I started studying this, I was astounded, and I always like to share that when I'm talking about this program. Go ahead, Joe. Oh, yeah. That might be the last one.
It is the last slide, but I have another point. Actually, similar to what you were saying, I always talk about farmland preservation in, here's how I think about it. It is incredibly inexpensive. It's inexpensive, of course, at the beginning, because we're getting discounts offered by landowners to preserve their land, but also this is land that stays in production, in agricultural production. It contributes to the economy. Of course, we can argue that other kinds of open space contribute to the economy too. But it's, farmers are out there producing food, and that's really valuable to us and to the economy of Delaware. Secretary had talked a little bit about the percent growth of GDP. I looked up the total GDP of Sussex County is $17 billion. And the value of agricultural products produced by farms is $1.4 billion. So that's almost 10% of Sussex County's GDP. And that's before you even consider manufacturing, wholesale that's associated with those farm products. And we have, of course, the chicken industry is big. Everybody knows about that. But we've got incredibly valuable watermelons being packaged. We've got other farms that operate packing lines. There are several industries built off of that. Hanover Foods is huge. They're up in Smyrna. They have a plant there, and they have a plant on the eastern shore of Maryland that they buy a lot of products. Schiff Farms, they have the big grain mill. They ship products. They export products out of Baltimore. They ship products by rail up to Pennsylvania. It's incredible. And that's only happening because people are still on that land growing the products that are preserved. The other point that I wanted to make, so there's an organization called American Farmland Trust. And they do a census, more or less, of all the farm preservation programs in the country every year, and they put together all this information about who's preserved what land, what levels of funding they get, all that kind of stuff. And we always like to brag that we are consistently ranked I think the first best farm preservation program in the country and the second best agricultural policies in the country, second to New Jersey. That's right. So a couple of years ago, I was working on a proposal for a workshop at the Land Trust Rally, which is a national convention of land trusts every year. And I was working with, it was myself, Michelle Cable she's the Farmland Preservation Director in Maryland, Doug Wolfgang from Pennsylvania, Susan Payne from New Jersey. And we were looking at, our 4 states are ranked at some of the most successful farm preservation programs in the country. But we are also, we have some of the most threatened farmland. As a percentage, our 4 states are they're probably in the top 5. I think North Carolina is in the top 5 too. And we're just, we're trying to figure out, well, why is this? And I think one of the primary reasons that we are so successful, it's not just, of course, so we're successful because there are people who see development, because of course we're all in the corridor, the Northeast corridor. There's a lot of population growth, a lot of industry. There are people living around there that look around and they see growth and they think, we want to make sure that growth is happening in the right place. So they are interested, they go to their politicians and they say, hey, we want to make sure that farmland's being preserved, and we're willing to open up our taxpayer pocketbooks to do that. And that's, I'm pretty sure, the reason that we've had the success that we have. So.
We'll take some questions, I hope.
Yes, we will.
Thank you for this. So when a farmer that has an easement retires and his family doesn't want to continue the farm, does that land automatically become open space? What happens to it if it has the easement?
The family has to, the easements persist. So what happens to the estate is between the family, their lawyers, but we've got our place. We have our recording. The easement is in place, and there are situations where farmland is sold to another family. That happens quite often, and the family that's receiving that's buying the land is getting a pretty good value because they're not paying for the development rights, which were already purchased. In all likelihood, no. The easements are recorded with the intention of perpetuity. There's a way out, but it's so expensive, nobody's ever tried it, and I can't imagine anybody trying, because you would have to pay the current market value for the property, and that to purchase it and gamble on appreciation of the land from there on would be incredible gamble.
Thank you. As a former elected official in the state of New Jersey, I would like to share with you a program that was very, very successful, very, very popular with the municipality in which I was mayor. We had a 2%, 2 cent per $100 of assessed value tax, which was put into a particular fund exclusively and uniquely used to purchase farmland and open space. The state of New Jersey matched us 75% for every 25% that we contributed. It was one of the most popular programs in our county, and everybody always supported it unanimously. Looking at $10 million and a way to increase that number to be more, shall we say, in line with the real estate values that are existing today, has anybody proposed that same concept in Delaware to try and raise additional funds? I think if you gave people a choice and said, hey, listen, 2 cents for every $100 of assessed value was going to go to preserve open space and farmland, it would probably be very, very successful. And I think you'd find that a lot of people would, jump all over that. Thank you.
Make a note of that, Mike. That, to my knowledge, no. This method, which has existed since 2005, or this mechanism, I should say, has been satisfactory to the policymakers, but I think we illustrated to you that we're getting diminishing returns for that percentage of the transfer tax. And I have a good friend at the Office of Management and Budget named Brian Maxwell. And I'm not asking anyone for consideration, but there could be someone who thinks the program deserves consideration for an adjustment. I'll just leave it like that. That's correct. Yes, there is that, which, that value just builds over time. But also there's, a landowner can take, is it a deduction or a credit from their taxes? Okay. It makes a big difference. But most of the farmers that do this, they take advantage of the tax benefits at some point.
27% of the county is forest, and your photo shows some forest land. I wonder if you could enlighten us a little bit on either working lands or forest conservation efforts that are going on. I know the federal government has the Forest Legacy Program, but I'm not sure that Delaware's participated in that too much. But I believe that you have a program that is not in perpetuity that forest landowners can participate in. Can you elaborate on that?
Sure. Yeah, we have a forest land preservation program. It actually runs almost identically to farmland preservation, except it's for forested properties, and the easement. It's the first phase. The documents restrict the land to timber production, so you can't clear it and turn it into farmland, or put up ag structures or something like that. Other than there is a housing allowance on it. Other than that, it has to remain in timber production, and it goes through the same process, and it is permanent if we buy an easement. where they apply, they commit to 10 years not to develop, and then we will provide them with an appraisal and they can make an offer, and we go through the same discount rating process to select farms timber farms for that program. There is also, you mentioned Forest Legacy. The Forest Service has purchased a few easements. They did it mostly in, I think, around 2005 through the Forest Legacy program to preserve a lot of the old Gladfelter woodlots. And and we have a lot of land in ag lands that is forested. And it can, if it's in an ag lands easement, it can be cleared. I'll say very little of it ever has, but we own easements on about 46,000 acres of forests in Delaware.
Yes, the National Forest Service, I understand, is investment, which is very good news, in my opinion. And how is that going to affect you?
Great question. Wait, that answer changes every day.
The question was, in light of the National Forest Service being decimated, and the Forest Service is is in the USDA, by the way. I mean, you can imagine the prevalence of the Forest Service out in some of the western states. And they are the primary wildfire fighting outfit. Now, what's interesting is we have Delaware firefighters that have gone out west and joined those efforts. That's an underappreciated fact too. That's to think that a small state like Delaware contributes to the wildfire fighting nationwide. The question on how it affects us is to be determined. And you mentioned our state forester, Kyle Hoyd, an outstanding state forester, a tremendous asset to the state of Delaware. Kyle eats, breathes, and lives this stuff, and all things forest. And he never misses a trick. I might be able to send Kyle down here someday. He would be glad to come and talk to your group. But he's the guy to ask that question of, and so we'll see. Now, the president and his budget staff propose, and the Congress disposes. So the power of the purse historically belongs to Congress, but we'll see.
Probably 60 to 70% of state forestry agencies are affiliated with natural resource departments and not ag departments. Usually where they are in ag departments, there's a real close affinity to the land-grant college institutions, and those forest employees are actually kind of universities as well. I'm just wondering, has there ever been conversations about the Delaware Forest Service transferring out of ag and going to Denrick?
Yes. But we haven't entertained the subject since I've been secretary.
Any final questions? Secretary, Deputy Secretary. I want to thank you very much for coming, and I've learned a lot, and I hope everybody else has too. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
I got something I want to say.
Class dismissed. We're done. Thank you for coming.